Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
I could tell you this. I love my job. I love the people, the time, the work, and the situations that my job gives me. Not every day is a great day, but I really do love my job. And I'm sure you can say the same thing about some of the jobs that you have or maybe have right now. But if you had a dream job, what would it be? When I was growing up, I wanted to play video games for a living. Now, if the Tennessee Titans offered me a job, that would probably be a dream job to think about that. But what if you have the chance to work alongside NFL teams, players, coaches, and executives? What if you had the opportunity to write columns or interview some of your favorite players? I know every job has its highs and lows, but imagine being able to work alongside the NFL every day. Today, my interview is with a man who gets to do just that. And I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a moment. And I know you're going to enjoy his story. Speaking of story, if you have a story you would like to share about why your NFL team is your favorite and why it is family, you can message me at Jeremy_McFarland on Twitter. That is JEREMY_MCFARLIN. And we will try to get you on the show. Thank you for tuning in to Football is Family. And we'd like to welcome everybody back to the podcast Football is Family. I've got a special guest, and I'm going to let him introduce himself for you, if you would.
Hey, everybody. I am Luke Worsham. I'm glad to be here. I covered the Tennessee Titans as mostly a columnist, analyst, but occasionally as a reporter reporting news for A to Z Sports Nashville. Here in Nashville, I get to, in normal times when we're not under social distancing protocols, I'll get to be in the locker room and talking to the players and just getting an idea of what's going on within the team and trying to break that down for all of you on our website and through the podcast that I host as well, which is titled No Nonsense. I host that with my buddies, Will and Matthias. But especially now, Jeremy, that we're right at the cusp of the start of the season. It's kind of football all the time for me. So thank you for having me on, and I look forward to having a conversation today.
Now, this is being recorded on the 14th of September, meaning that your day is just beginning.
Oh, yeah. The Titans play tonight at 9:10 Central Time, which is Nashville time. So, 3.5 hour game done at 12:30. You got press conferences after. You got it all over Zoom, of course. You have to right after. And so as I was telling my boss, Austin Stanley, on Twitter earlier today, and my little I write out a schedule for every day, kind of breaking down my day by the hour. And I have planned out in my schedule a very long afternoon nap to make sure that I can get through all of this tonight. But it's exciting. This is why you cover sports. If you're a sports writer, it's the draft is fun, free agency is fun, but you do it for the games, and so it's very exciting.
Now, how close did you get when the draft came to Nashville? How close were you able to get into that?
I was on the red carpet when the draft came to Nashville, which was really, really cool. One of the things that we were able to do at A to Z, because we have such a big team, we have me, we have Buck Rising, Austin Stanley, and Zach Bingham. That's sort of our Titan-centric team. And we were able to sort of divide and conquer. And so on the first night, and typically reporters in a market will go to the team's facility on draft night because they'll have, press conference with the coach and the GM, conference calls with the players that get drafted. And so at least for the first night, for the rest of it, I was at the Titans facility. But for the first night, we sent Buck to the Titans facility. Austin and Zach did their show, and I kind of got to meander around downtown and cover that scene. But being on the red carpet was a lot of fun. I got to talk to some of these draft prospects. I'm trying to remember. I talked to Drew Lock, who the Titans will play tonight. Hollywood Brown is someone that I thought the Titans should have drafted. Governor Haslam, not Governor Haslam, Governor Lee was on the red carpet. Amy Adams Strunk. It was a really fun experience, and probably up there with the coolest things, if not number one, pretty close, coolest things that this job has afforded me the opportunity to do.
Well, it was something else. And in case you didn't get to see the videos from the draft, I think we had on 2nd Avenue or Church Street, I believe it was Church Street, wasn't it? Or Broadway. It was Broadway. That place was packed. Do you know the exact number, or you have any idea what the number was?
I don't have a number. I did see it because when the Titans picked, I walked out because there was this little area between the stage, which was really long, and then the crowd where reporters could kind of hang out. And I was over there, and so I got to see the crowd. I know I've read the number. I don't remember it. What is it? Do you have it in front of you?
I don't actually. Let me see if I can.
Well, now I'm curious.
But I went earlier that day. I was not going to brave the crowd, but I did get to go see the area. And the best part about it, Luke, was I saw Browns fans, Seahawks. There was a man from the 49ers who was carrying around fake Lombardi trophies. And I thought that was pretty impressive. It
was 600,000, by the way. That's according to Google.
That is insane. And if you've ever been to downtown Nashville, that is a lot more than can fit down there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Luke, tell me about what is your first and earliest memories about the NFL?
Yeah, and this is fun to talk about. This is so unique. I'm so glad you're doing this. This is such a great idea. So I was a bit of a late bloomer. I never played organized sports as a kid. I'm not terribly athletic. I can do two things. I can catch and I can throw. Unfortunately, I cannot run, which sort of limits my ability to play sports. But, my dad is a sort of casual fan of football. But we were never the type of family that, was playing catch out in the yard or anything like that. And so I kind of discovered football on my own in a way. I remember in the 5th grade, or maybe actually it was at the end of 4th grade, the Super Bowl between Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and the Steelers that the Packers won. I remember seeing that on the TV. And of course, we would always have games on and we would always, watch the Super Bowl, but I just never took any interest in it. And I was watching the Super Bowl and kind of asking my dad questions, okay, the commentator just said this. What does that mean? What just happened? Okay, well, they just put this many points on the board. Why is that? And it kind of piqued my interest. And so I got on my iPad and downloaded Madden back when they would make Madden for the iPad. And I just started doing that. And the more I played it, the more I was like, this is the greatest thing in the world, And so I did that. And then once football season rolled around, I grew up in the Nashville area. And so I started watching the Titans because they were the team that we got on like our local stations. And sort of by osmosis, just by seeing them all the time, I started rooting for the Titans. And obviously, I can't do that anymore now because I cover them, and it's been years since I have openly rooted for the Titans. But that was sort of my entry into it. It wasn't so much family culture. It was just I loved it. And it got to the point where when I first started playing Madden, because that was really my entry into all of this, it very quickly went from, oh, this is fun, I kind of like this, to the more I played those video games, the more I was like, this is the greatest thing ever, and I just want to soak it all in and can never get enough of it. And still to this day, when I'm terribly busy from football season, I will still, just because I love it so much and think it's so much fun, I'll go over there. I've got a PS4 over there. I'll crank up Madden and play for a little bit. But that was sort of my entry into football. A little bit unconventional, but not terribly unconventional, I don't think.
Well, it sounds like the generation that you're talking about probably exposed to Madden before they're exposed to much of anything else. And I was kind of hoping you said you had an Xbox One, so you and I could play. I'm a little late bloomer when it comes to I don't get the new game
I don't
until
either.
later on.
I stopped doing that probably 3 or 4 years ago because they kind of hit a peak. Like in 2014, I loved that year's game.
Yep.
I loved the 2 that came after that. The one that I play is 17. That's the one that I play whenever I play Madden. And as has been very well publicized since the most recent game came out, not only have they not improved it, it has gotten progressively worse and looks progressively worse. So I stick with some of the recent but older ones still.
I'm playing 20 right now because I wanted Derrick Henry at one of his peak, and then AJ Brown. But way off the subject, I had a rage quit a couple of days ago where Tannehill threw to AJ Brown. AJ bobbled it twice. It went up in the air. The defensive guy bobbled it twice. Another guy caught it, ran it back for a touchdown. So I had a rage quit. I admit it. I have learned over the years that games are not worth getting mad at. You just quit and move on.
Exactly. And there's lots of things in life like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think the all-time greatest game is Tecmo Bowl Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. That's
beyond my time. That's much earlier than me.
He's calling me old, folks. He's calling me old. But I tell you what, if you young whippersnappers can find it, play Tecmo Bowl Super Bowl. But see, your earliest memories deal with video games, which is a lot, which is fun, which is great. Which is one of the things that I enjoy about the football. Which for me, I grew up. I was 6 foot, 130 pounds. If I played football, I would have been broken in half.
Yeah. I mean, I was very much the same way. I'm 5'8" right now, and have been kind of for years since I was in 9th, 10th grade. And so I was never really built for this. And another thing I want to say too about the video game thing, because I think it gets a bad rap a lot of times, like, the kids are just playing video games. But what sports video games do, I think, so well is they teach you not only the rules, but as you listen to the commentators talk, you pick up on verbiage. And here's my example for that. So obviously Madden was my entry into football, but if I'm a huge baseball fan now and wasn't as recently as 3 or 4 years ago. And it's because I was at a church event and there was a PS4 set up, and one of my good friends was like, "Hey, you want to play MLB The Show?" I was like, "Well, I understand the basic rules of baseball. You hit the ball, run around the bases." But we played that, and I kind of liked it, and so I went and bought the game and started playing. And now I'm a huge baseball fan, and I don't. But if I had to, I could write and do what I'm doing for the Titans right now for baseball, because that's the level of understanding I've gained mostly from playing these video games. And I think they have great value.
As long as it's the Red Sox, we can keep talking.
I'm actually a Reds fan, but I don't know that hinders your Red Sox very much, because the Reds have not been good this year.
It really does. And I haven't paid attention to baseball much other than the Sox. But that's the thing. I remember, and sticking to the video game topic, John Madden and Pat Summerall did the voiceovers and play-by-play for Madden for a long time. Mm-hmm. And now Charles Davis, to me, is the epitome, the top of what it means to be a play-by-play. He is such, and I think Brandon Gall is with him as well. But mm-hmm. Charles Davis is about as smooth and about as good as it comes. And if you haven't heard him being interviewed, they do. Mike Keith has interviewed him several times, and he's also on NFL Network. He is about as nice a guy as I've ever heard.
He is. I've never actually met Charles. I've been around him a little bit because he and Dan Hellie do the Titans preseason games.
Yes, they do.
So I've seen him around at practices, and I've never actually spoken to him or introduced myself. But the interactions I see him having with other people, you very much see that.
And that's a genuinely good guy. So tell me a little bit about, you talked a little bit about your work what are some of
Mhm.
your favorite interviews that you've had?
Ooh, well, it's interesting because because I'm mostly a writer, I don't have a whole lot of, sit down interviews. Like Buck has a lot of those with his podcast where it's just him and a guy, they're talking for 15, 20 minutes like we are now. And, it's more for a broadcast content where the goal is to entertain. And so for me, when I think back on that question, I don't think so much of great interviews. I think to great quotes. Like I remember talking to Kenny Vaccaro 2 years ago before the Titans played the Giants, and we were talking about Saquon Barkley. And I said, "What do you see when you turn on the film with Barkley?" And he says, all my life, everybody was always like, "Tell me about Barry Sanders." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." He said, "When I turned on the tape with Saquon Barkley, I was like, I saw all the things that my family and everybody would tell me about Barry Sanders." I'm like, that's such a great quote. And so as a writer, one of my journalism professors always taught me that as a journalist, quotes are currency. Quotes are your money when you're a journalist. And so because I'm a writer, that's sort of the approach that I take. Another great day of interviews was the day after the Titans lost the AFC Championship. I was thinking about how I kind of wanted to close the season out in terms of written content. And I knew I would do a sort of a season recap, like a where are we now kind of piece for the Titans. But I also knew I wanted to write sort of a eulogy for Marcus Mariota's Titans career because we all knew it was over. And, I talked to some offensive players. I talked to Jack Conklin, A.J. Brown, and some others. But what surprised me is, and I did this not really knowing what I was going to get, but I walked up to Kevin Byard, who is, in addition to being one of the nicest and most genuine people you'll ever meet, is also incredibly well-spoken and so intelligent that he's just so much fun to have a conversation with. But I walked up to him and I said, "Kevin, I want to ask you about Mariota. I know he's not a defensive player, but from your perspective as a team captain and someone that played with him for years, what's sort of your takeaway from having played with him?" And it was amazing. And granted, I'm someone that has criticized Mariota because he's just not that good as a quarterback, but I never denied his impact on the locker room and how good of a person he was. It was just amazing that this defensive player is standing here talking about how Marcus Mariota impacted his personal life and made an impact on the kind of person that Kevin Byard is. And then I got the same kind of things from other defensive players. And I talked to Taylor Lewan in a scrum and asked him the same question. And so those are the moments that I think back on as like, wow, those were great quotes. And it's just the coolest part of what I get to do because, growing up as a football fan, like I mentioned, I kind of couldn't get enough of it. I was always so curious. And I still sort of have that curiosity, maybe not to the degree that I once did. But the great thing now, and what I think is so cool about this job is, yeah, I'm looking for quotes for stories. I'm looking to write good columns and sort of artistically write all of this. But my favorite part is if there's something I want to know, like if I watch the game tonight on the TV or, when we get to go back to the stadium, and I think, what in the world was that? Or I think, now that was pretty good. I wonder who decided that or why that. I get to go ask the people, hey, what was, what my favorite question to ask in press conferences and the players is why? Because it just opens the door up and you get to let them talk. So it's sort of a long-winded answer to your questions, but that's what I think is so cool about this job. And when you ask about, favorite interviews, anytime I talk to Kevin Byard, that's probably a favorite interview. Rashawn Evans is kind of like that too. But I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does. And I appreciate you going into depth and you're not seeing the video that I'm seeing, but he's very animated about that, about knocked his microphone off the hinge there. So that's when you got a legit discussion going when you knock the microphone off. How long have you been working with A to Z Sports?
Tonight begins my third football season with A to Z Sports. Before that, I wrote for Titan Sized, the fan-sided blog,
Yes.
from 2016 to 2018. This is also my fourth year podcasting about the Titans. I did 2 years for Titan Sized, and this is year 2 of No Nonsense, which is basically the same thing we were doing at Titan Sized, but it's an enterprise that I and Matthias and Will own.
Now, I just, way off the subject, I just got a message from Yahoo Sports saying that Marlon Mack is out for the season.
Yep, I saw that earlier.
Tear. So if you have him on your fantasy league, you might want to find that backup.
You might want to go pick up Nyheim Hines. I mean, he had a great game yesterday. Phillip Rivers was throwing to him a bunch.
See, that's what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear that. But now tell me, I've got a couple more questions for you, and I will let you go. And I appreciate your time. You said that you've experienced. If you can go back and put any your Madden game that you're talking about, if you could take any of the older players in the NFL and place it in your Madden football team, who would be your starting running back?
I was about to when you started asking that question, I had a running back in mind, and then when you narrowed it down, my all-time favorite NFL player, partly because of playing with him in Madden growing up, but watching him also, is Adrian Peterson. And I'm so thrilled that he's with the Lions now and that we get to, for at least another year, watch him. He had a great game yesterday, averaged over 6 yards a carry on 17 carries. But I have always been sort of partial to running backs, and I don't know why. And I am bored to tears with the teams that just want to run the ball, down your throat. But for whatever reason, like DeMarco Murray was always, when he was with the Cowboys, was one of my favorite players to watch. But Adrian Peterson is my all-time favorite NFL player because no one ever has been like him. Adrian Peterson manages to run like he's 5'8", but also run like he's, Derrick Henry, like he's 6'3". He has an incredible combination of power, and his jump cut is just as good of a jump cut as you'll find from a smaller running back. And I've just always been mesmerized with him, especially his MVP season in 2012 kind of made me really fall in love with him and sort of solidified all of that. And Adrian Peterson is my answer to that question.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, him and Frank
Without
Gore.
a doubt.
Frank Gore. I can't believe that those two guys are still running the way they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one more question, and I will let you go. I'm just making sure that I just got another message and hoping that I don't have that Patrick Mahomes is still on my team. Somehow I got him at the second pick this year in my draft. I'm still surprised that I got him. But anyway, the topic of this podcast is football is family.
Yep.
What makes football family to you?
So, and when you first sent me the message asking if I would come on, I kind of started thinking about that because I knew this was the direction you were heading with the podcast. And what comes to mind is, for me in my life, the greatest impact that sports had, because for a lot of people, the impact of sports is, you play it growing up and you learn leadership and discipline and initiative and all those important lessons. Well, I never played sports growing up, so I had to learn those lessons elsewhere. So the meaning of sports for me in terms of family idea and my life is, it is, in my opinion, the single greatest conversation starter. And I don't mean that in the sense that, you need to go to a cocktail party and start talking about football and that's all it means. I mean that I could list for you, 5 or 6 of my very best friends who, I didn't necessarily go to school with or met elsewhere, who the first time we met, the conversation was, I just run into them and I'm having small talk and maybe I see that, they're wearing a Patriots cap. And I can say, hey, did you see what Tom Brady did yesterday? or, they're wearing a Cincinnati Bengals jersey. And I say, man, AJ Green had that crazy catch yesterday. Did you see that? And what happens from that connection is it gives you this mutual endpoint, because I believe that with relationships, a lot of times you have to have something mutual. You're in the same class together in school, you work at the same place. And I think that sports pervades all of those things and gives everyone this sort of entry point to then develop a deeper relationship. Now, a lot of these people that come to mind when I think about that, I'm obviously much deeper friends with them than that now, where I'm not, our relationship exists beyond football, but it's such a great entry point. For someone that's certainly not I wouldn't exactly consider myself a great mingler. Like I was telling one of my buddies the other day, I was like, small talk is just one of the things in life that I abhor the most. So for someone like me who sort of has that personality trait, it's such a comfort knowing that, if you find someone that loves football, you can talk about football with them. And then I think it extends beyond football. If you find someone that's a big baseball fan, it just sort of gives you an entry point into relationships. And I think the relationships are, in a lot of ways, in addition to the Lord, I think that relationships are the key to life and the key to surviving and to thriving. And I think that sports are oftentimes one of the greatest avenues to those relationships.
So it's more than just a box score. It's a connection.
Absolutely. 100%.
See, this is what I want from this, because I think sometimes we as fans, number one, get pushed aside. The ticket prices get raised. Everything gets raised. The hat I'm wearing right now was on sale on a website for $15. It's the Titans when they went to
I really
Britain.
like that.
Yeah, I just found it's like, I had to have it. I had to have it. Now I'm looking at prices way above what I typically want to pay for merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
But we stick with sports because, number one, we find a team, we go around them, or number two, we find a player. And number three, how many times have you gone to a game, whether it be preseason or regular season, that you start talking to people next to you and you lose it, you get attached to them, y'all scream together, you cry together, you get mad together for 3 hours.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what I was getting at. It's such an incredible connection builder. The fact that you can go to a Titans game or a Bengals game or a Colts game or any other game, and you're sitting next to this guy that you've never seen before in your life, and yet because you have this connection, you feel like for years.
That's the big thing. Well, Luke, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your enthusiasm. And again, plug your show for us, will you?
Yeah, so everything I write you can find on A2ZSportsNashville.com. I imagine this will be coming out after the Titans game, so you can catch practice week coverage and everything else on our website. You can follow me on Twitter at Luke_Worsham. And my podcast is No Nonsense, a Tennessee Titans podcast. You can follow us and find links to listen on Twitter and Facebook at No Nonsense Pod.
And yet this is another reason why football is family. Thank y'all.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, Or who knows, maybe even write an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.